ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about, really, we're talking about, put that scenario in front of you. If you have money in the stock market or some other form of equity, should you continue to invest in that, or should you put that money in your business? Now, I'm not going to say I'm not a financial advisor, but there's certain things that are foundational to funding and money that you don't have to be an expert to know. Just like I'm not an attorney, but I can tell you that you should have a will. So there's certain things that I can say, if it were me, this is what I would do. So let's talk about funding for a minute, because when I started my company several years ago, funding was an issue. I didn't have any money to start a business. I mean, I had some money, but I didn't realize until I started digging around that I had money that I didn't know I had. You don't have to have a basket of money somewhere buried out in the yard to have money, because you can get that money from other sources. So first, let's answer that question we asked about earlier. Should I put that money in the stock market, or should I put it in my business? Well, first of all, those two are not mutually exclusive. You can actually do both, but you probably should do them in the right order. Let's say if you have that money in the stock market, you can actually do what we call, you can get a margin loan. And a margin loan is that you can leverage that stock, the value of that stock, up to 50% and get a really low interest rate loan. Let's say if you have $20,000 in the stock market, you can actually go to your broker and say, look, I want to take out $10,000 loan against that. And many people don't realize that. They think they have to sell it. They think they have to sit on it, or they have to go get money from a different source. Now, of course, you have to be aware of something called a margin call. And that means if the value of that asset reduces below a certain level, they can either force you to sell off some of additional stock or put some more money in the account so you don't fall below a certain amount. Now, of course, margin loan is one way to get money. So you don't have to sell that stock if you need money to start your business. But there are other ways. You may have other assets that you can use if you're talking about some type of secured loan, like a HELOC, or we call it a home equity line of credit. You can use the equity in your house. Some people, once again, we did a series of workshops with a company a few years ago, and that was really what they focused on, ownership, the value of owning a house and a property. And one of those things that we used to punch very hard is that you don't have to sell that property. You can have any asset. This is what the rich people do. They don't sell their assets. They leverage them. They hang on to the assets and use those assets to get the money they need. The old saying, use other people's money and hang on to your own. So those are two of the ways that we can fund our businesses. And it takes that question into a different direction. Do I have to do I invest in stock, or do I invest in my business? You can actually do both. Let's talk about some other ways to get money for your business. Now, like I say, I've probably done most of the ones on this list, because I've had several businesses, and also as a business consultant, I've had to work with companies and individuals, and even refer them to financial advisors to help them navigate these waters. One of the oldest ways is bootstrapping. Just use the money from your regular job and put it back into the business. You got another job over here, you're starting your business over here, take that money and just keep funneling it in. And that was one of the ways also that I used when I was first getting started. I never just quit my job because I decided to start a business. Some people make that rookie mistake. They say, look, the only way I'm going to do this, I've got to cut the apron strings. I'm not sure about that. You got to time it, ladies and gentlemen. You got to think that thing through. There is a right time to walk away, but it's good if you have that source of revenue that you can funnel into your business. You can get a credit line through corporate credit cards. Now, there's corporate credit cards and there's personal credit cards. Corporate credit cards are usually in your company's name, and they have different rules and regulations. Then you have your personal credit cards. Once again, one of my first businesses, which was a payphone business, I financed it through personal credit cards. I had good credit back then before I got into business. Things can change quickly once you become a business owner. But anyway, I had this perfect credit when I got about $20,000 in credit cards. It took about 5 credit cards to do it, but I bought my payphone business, and I use personal credit cards. Now, if you say you're already in business and you're collecting revenues on a regular basis, if you're using PayPal or Square, they have what we call working capital. And usually they base it on some kind of formula based on how much money you collected, and of course how long, if you're paying your bills on time. You can actually do they will actually give you a line of credit. I mean, the day I figured that out, man, I thought I had hit the lottery. PayPal sent me a little note, say, hey buddy, need $3,000. I'm like, me, man, I was poor as Tom's turkey at the time, but I had regular revenue coming in. So you can look at some of those options, and they'll usually let you know. If not, call them, let them, ask them. You can also get, you can secure a loan through some of your business assets, such as inventory, real estate, equipment. Once again, you don't have to sell it. You can leverage it. The Small Business Administration, they can back a loan for you. Now, of course, there's some paperwork involved in that. A lot of people, they're not just handing out money. And the Small Business Administration is not in the business of giving out money, by the way. They will back the loans of a bank, but they don't personally, the bank, SBA does not give out the money. If you have accounts receivables, some companies got people owing their money up the yin yang, and it's money you know you're going to get. We're not talking about bad debt you're about to write off, but sometimes the terms, a lot of people in government space do this. They may factor. They say, look, I got $50,000 out here on this contract, and I can't wait, man. I might not see that money for 90 days. So they go to a factoring company. And this factoring company, what they'll do, they'll go ahead and front them the money. And then they can use that money right away instead of waiting for those terms. Now, of course, you got to pay for it. One thing about money is not free. But sometimes you got to look at what your goals are. What's the goal? Why do I need this money? Why do I need it now? And sometimes you realize you need that money now, even if you have to pay a little bit more money for it. It all aligns with what your goals of your company and where you are at that particular time in the development of your business. And also, my last one, and like I said, there are other ways. And if you have a financial advisor, I think William says you can crowdsource funding. So there are different ways out here to get this money. But don't let funding be the reason you set on your dreams, because there are creative ways out here to get money. And the last one I'm going to talk about is venture capitalists. These folks, they're like, if you got an idea that's going to just explode and take off, and we call that those scale it and sell it model. But if you have like an idea, a lot of internet companies do this, where they go to a VC or venture capitalist, and they will front them like $200,000, $500,000, and they may do what we call an interest-only loan, where they may do like a 5-year term. At the end of the year, and then that 5-year term, the loan becomes due, and everybody, they made so much money, that's just a piece of cake. So anyway, folks, there are ways out here to make money. No, you don't have to sell your assets necessarily. You can leverage them if you have stocks. And I say this because I know many people that got into the stock market during the pandemic, like myself. And some made some pretty good money. But their businesses are still, they need some cash flow. So like any loan or any type of time you're leveraging your assets, just make sure, talk to somebody who can give you good advice. And there's always some risk. Like I said, we talked about the margin call on the stocks. You don't want to play around with your house if you're doing some kind of shady business. So you want to make sure you're talking to somebody who has experience in those areas. And anytime you're dealing with money or lending, there are some risk involved. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up the show for today. This is the Marketing Pulpit TV show. I'm Robert Gatewood, your host. I want to thank everybody for tuning in.